Welcome to Pet Sitter Confessional. Today, we're brought to you by Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. How much does a dog walk cost you to do? How much does it cost you to stay overnight in somebody's home? These are things that as businesses, we have to fully understand to make sure that we can run a successful business and be here tomorrow and the next day and then next year and then the year after that. But do we fully understand what it means to cost us? And that's a conversation we're super excited to have with Jill Jaffe, owner of Paws Sake, in honor of Lily. Let's get started.
My name is Jill Jaffe. I'm based out of Dallas, Texas. However, I'm originally from LA County, born and raised. Moved out here back in 2005, and I've been here ever since. And I own and operate my own pet sitting company, including dog walking for Paws Sake Pet Sitting. And started about, actually 10 years ago this month. I used to work at the largest banking and mortgage firm in the country. And actually, I survived one layoff. I was laid off and then rehired by the same company. And the second time around, they asked me and the other people in my group to work from home. So we started working from home. This was at the beginning of, I think, 2012. And in the midst of that, my best friend who owns a company in Los Angeles, and she's been doing this now 13 years, she kind of started pressing me to pet sit. And I told her I just couldn't leave my job, because I have benefits. It's a little difficult to, get benefits when you're working for yourself. So,
Right.
she planted the seed in my head. And so I put an ad up on Craigslist and got my first dog walking client 3 times a week for a nurse. And so I would do that during my lunch hour. My hours with my full-time job was pretty flexible. As long as I did my full day's work, it wasn't that big of a deal. So my hour lunch became like an hour and a half, maybe, including the driving. But I would work later in the day in my regular job. And then it kind of escalated. I started getting a few more inquiries. So it was becoming a little bit more difficult to just stay within that hour and a half. So I try to do walks before my regular hours at work. And then after. And then about 3 months into working from home, I started hearing rumors within the company that there were going to be layoffs again. And I had this sick feeling in my stomach. And sure enough, I got the call from my manager, and I was let go. And had a nice severance package. I wasn't upset.
Sure.
So I packed up all my stuff the day that I got my call. I sent it back to the main office, and I sat down in my chair and had a little freak out moment. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to start pet sitting. And so that's what happened. I just kept putting ads up on Craigslist, because they kind of drop off after maybe a week or two. So I had to keep reposting them, and I would get more inquiries. And then I said to myself, why not just build a website? So I did. I built, one of those basic websites through, I think it was Weebly. And oh my goodness, it just like exploded. I was getting a lot of calls, not always in my area. But the thing is, back then, we all do this when we start pet sitting, is that we want to take on every client that comes our way. And that's what I was doing. I was going 10, 15, 20 miles away, which here in Dallas can be a little strenuous with the traffic.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, and especially with the explosion of people coming in from other states to move here, it was becoming a little bit harder to get to my clients on time. So I had to shrink down my area. But yeah, so that's how I started pet sitting. I was working for another company, got laid off, and decided I could work for myself. And it took probably a good 6 months to really see kind of like, a steady enough income where I can actually pay my rent without worrying or completely using up my severance package. I mean, at that point, probably 6 months than I did, but I wasn't stressing as much.
Take us back to that moment where you said you had that little freak out period in your living room. How were you processing that?
Yeah, I mean, I really freaked out for quite a while, actually. I mean, as I was packing up my stuff, but I also felt this sense of relief because I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when. And because I already had this mindset, like at some point I'm going to get laid off, because it happened before, 3 years before I was laid off, because there was another merger, with a smaller company being taken over by the bigger one. Uh, I felt like if I don't make this transition now, then I'm going to have to work for somebody else again. And I didn't want to. I was done actually, having a boss. So it probably took about an hour before I settled down and took my dogs for a walk and then came back in going, okay, I need to write some little plan out for myself. I called my mother and told her what happened, and she was a little worried about me. And I said, don't worry, I got this covered. I'll make it work. It's just, here was the thing, is that I had to learn how to price, my rates. And the thing is, like, many of us did this, is that we all, find out what other pet sitters are charging in our areas and base it off of that. And that's kind of what I did. But I also did what my best friend was doing. The prices in LA at the time were actually about the same here in Dallas. So I kind of worked off of her model just because I didn't know. And she was 3 years into this, but I didn't like exactly how she had her set up. So I made some tweaks to this. But yeah, so, it didn't take long to recover from getting that phone call from my manager that I was being laid off. He was very sweet about it. And I think it helped calm me down. And I just moved forward.
Well, it sounds like kind of already having this side thing in the works helped a lot with that transition for you to know at least there was, well, maybe I can try this and move forward. But there's all these other thoughts that come in that. But it sounds like you're also pretty resolute of, okay, not again. I don't want to go through that again. So I'm going to make some changes for me personally. And that's an interesting place I think a lot of us reach, especially whenever we're just starting. Of yes, there's I want to be with pets, I want to help people, but there's also this personal drive of what am I getting out of this, right? There is a particular freedom that comes from this that a lot of us are seeking after when we make this decision to go into business for ourselves.
Absolutely. And the thing is that for, 20 plus years, I was always working for somebody else on their hours, on their schedule, and their demands. Whereas here I can work off of what's going to make me comfortable and the clients comfortable and their pets. Their pets are my number one priority. So in order to make sure that everyone's happy, I have to make sure that I can do things under how I want to structure it. Of course, bending a little bit with what the client needs, but ultimately this is going to be for my benefit, because if I'm not happy, then no one's going to be happy.
Right. Right. And that is the interesting driving force behind a lot of our schedules. Many of us say, oh, I want to go into this for the flexibility and the freedom. And then we find ourselves with no flexibility and no freedom because of what we take on. So how have you managed to keep those boundaries up? Because in this, it's so easy to suddenly just have 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week for year after year after year doing this kind of work.
And I did that. And I still do at times. Don't get me wrong. I still do this.
Sure. Yeah.
But I do it for certain clients. So, again, when I was mentioning before that when we start out pet sitting, we're taking on any and everybody. And it didn't matter where, because we didn't understand how difficult it would be to drive. The driving is a huge factor on a daily basis of where our time goes. I don't work on numbers specifically in this case, but the point being is that, you're easily driving 40 to 60 miles a day on a busy day when you have 10 plus 15 visits a day, and that was the case for me over July 4th weekend. And I mapped everything out and I couldn't believe it. I was like, I don't want to go through this again. I'll do it on occasion, but I can't do this, 4, 5, 6, 7 days straight. It's too exhausting. But so I was offering everything: drop-ins, dog walking, and overnight visits. I thought overnight visits were like, oh man, I'll be staying in, wonderful homes with the most well-behaved pets. And, the clients tell me that I can make myself at home and eat their food, so I don't have to worry about bringing dinner over, use the spa and the the pool, which I don't ever do.
Right.
Well, that's a whole other thing. Is my mother's instilled it since we were children, never to swim alone. So anyway, so I never did. Um, but yeah, so you think that you have it made, that working 10, 12 hours is not such a big deal because you get to be with animals all day long, and over time it becomes very exhausting. And I cringe every single time I see newer pet sitters saying, I love doing the overnights. I get to be with the animals all day. I'm like, but do you realize that your lack of sleep is going to hinder your performance on a daily basis if you continue to do this? 2 weeks out, I saw someone comment that they were doing 64 straight overnights. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I'm like, how are you sleeping? But then again, everyone's lifestyle is different. At the time when I started pet sitting, I had 3 dogs and 1 cat, and they didn't have the needs that they do now because they were younger, and I wasn't in tune with, a schedule. So if they had an accident in the house, it wasn't a big deal for me. And they're pee pads, it wasn't that worrisome for me. But now with the health issues that my pets have, I'm a lot more concerned. And I'm getting older. I don't sleep well. I need my own bed, and even with my own bed, I don't always sleep well because one of the animals will wake me up. Yeah. So doing these long shifts, I don't advise. And of course, the next step for any pet sitter, which I've done in the past and will be doing again in the future, if you want to maintain having these full schedules, is to hire. And it can be quite difficult to find people that will truly understand what's all involved. It's not just staying with the animal; it's all that driving.
Yeah. Now you mentioned that you talked about your services there. So you don't currently offer overnights. Is that correct?
I don't. I have one client who has requested them, and I will do it for her because I've been walking her dog for like 8 years. So she would be the only one. But no, because I know him so well, and I actually take my own dogs with me when I go walk them 5 days a week when the weather's cooler. So he knows the dogs, and my dogs know him, so it's all good, and she's okay with it. But yeah, no, I don't offer overnights anymore.
When Megan and I first started, that was almost what we did exclusively was overnight care. And I mean, it was just chaos. We took the city we were living in, was actually Lubbock, Texas at the time. She took the west side, I took the east side, and we just kind of rotated through visits. And there was a month or 2 that we didn't really even see each other, and we didn't sleep in our same bed. Like we didn't even go back to our apartment all that much. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting. And the problem is that it was exhausting, but there was work to be done. And so you get caught in this mindset of, well, I guess this is just what this is, right? And there's so much work that I'll always be busy, and being busy is good. So I should just keep taking these on. So I'm always busy because that's good. And this loop continues. And until you take that step back and go, but where's my agency in this? What do I actually want to be doing, and how do I want to live? Because again, we get into this business to have that flexibility, and then we end up going 64 overnights back to back. Right?
Yeah. I think my longest slew of overnights was between 2 clients, lovely clients, great animals, was 17 days. And it was over my birthday. And I was so upset that I couldn't even celebrate my own birthday because my birthday is on July 3rd. So you can imagine it's always busy.
Yeah.
Because people are going out of town, right? And before I started pet sitting, I never worked on my birthday. I always took it off. And ever since I began pet sitting, I've been working. So, there's the rewards of it, of being, of working, and, the income coming in, but to what cost? That's the thing, is what's going to be the cost to you, to survive in this industry? How many hours do you want to put in? So that was one of the reasons why I decided, well, there is a main reason why I stopped offering overnights, but switching over to almost overnights, which has been a blessing. It really has.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Dan from NYC Pooch has this to say.
Time to Bet has been a total game changer for us. It helped us streamline many aspects of our operation, from scheduling and communication to billing and customer management. We actually tested other pet sitting softwares in the past, but these other solutions were clunky and riddled with problems. Everything in Time to Pet has been so well thought out. It's intuitive, feature-rich, and it's always improving.
If you're looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show can save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. Walk us through that decision to finally cut out overnights for you. Kind of what was the final nail in the coffin? And then I really want to know, like, how did you start communicating that to existing clients?
So my dog Lily, who many of the people in the pet sitter groups are aware of because I talk about her all the time. She's not a well-bred poodle, and thankfully, someone gave her to me for free, so I didn't pay for her. But she has been literally the most expensive dog I've ever had in my life. She has a condition; it's a genetic disease called intervertebral disc disease, or IVDD, and it doesn't show up right away. And there could be nothing that has happened, and it'll just show up, or something as easy as tripping over the dog bed that will, it's the herniated disc or calcification along the spine, which can cause a dog to become paralyzed if it's not caught on quick enough. Thankfully, her first episode happened in 2016. And the vet didn't give me the severity. Like, I never even heard of what this was. And so she recovered. And I continued to allow her to jump on and off the bed, on and off the couch, and going down the stairs. She couldn't go up the stairs, but I would let her go down the stairs. Well, it happened again a few days before I was set to do a week-long visit, a set of overnight visits at a client's home over Christmas. And this is like the worst time. It's just as bad as Thanksgiving because, doctors take time off work, over the holidays, veterinarians do, right? Yeah. So my normal vet was open, but all he could do was prescribe a couple medications to her, but she was not getting better. It was to the point where she was dragging her back legs. That's horrible. And you have to catch us within 24 hours to do something drastic. Unfortunately, I have a good work ethic. I don't cancel on my clients. They're already gone on their trip. And the thing I had to do was leave her at home alone. She couldn't move. So unfortunately, she was having accidents where she was sitting. And I would come back in, the following morning and take care of her. And it was awful for me because I felt guilty for leaving my own animal in pain at home where the medication wasn't working, and I couldn't take her to an ER because they couldn't do anything. She needed a neurologist, and the neurologist was not open until December 26th. So as soon as December 26th came about, I rushed her over there with a referral from my vet. I had to beg them to give me the referral, which was not good. And they took her right in. Thankfully, she hadn't really eaten yet, so they can put her under for an MRI. They found that she was at stage 2 IVDD and asked me if I wanted to put her, to have her go into surgery. I said, do whatever you can. I will write whatever check. I don't care. And once they took her in and I got the call that she, she did very well under surgery. She was, sleeping. And I felt a sense of relief. Like it just washed over me because as you can imagine that, you see an animal in pain or your child in pain and you're out of control. You can't stop it. I wake up every night at my client's house in the middle of the night and realize that my dog was in pain and I couldn't help her. And I would just cry myself back to sleep. And that was it. That was the aha moment for me. I'm done with overnights. So, I still did them occasionally for like 3 or 4 clients who've been using me, but they allowed me to bring her over when she finally recovered. She did, she made a full recovery. She's still kind of, we call this in the IVDD community, the drunken walk or waddle. Yeah. She still has a drunken walk. a couple of my clients said, you can bring her over. It's totally fine. But outside of that, and those clients actually have moved away since the pandemic. A lot of people have sold their homes and moved out or moved here. And so before that happened, I think it was just before New Year's, after she got home. Actually, I'll take that back. It was after New Year's. She got back January 5th. She got home. One of my clients who I used to do overnights for has a Rhodesian Ridgeback and asked me if I could do overnights. And I asked her, I said, would it be possible we could try a 2-hour evening visit? Let's just see how it goes with your dog. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll do an overnight for you. I think it was like 4 or 5 days. She said, okay, let's try that. And that's where it started. So we did a 2-hour evening visit. I came probably like 7:30, 8 o'clock and stayed for 2 hours, put the dog in bed, and came back the next morning to do an hour morning visit. And all was well, no accidents. The dog was happy to see me, totally relaxed, and came back in for the middle of the day to do the potty break. And I was like, you know what, this could work. This could really work. But I was stuck on what to call it, So for a long period of time, I was calling it extended evening pet sitting. I don't even remember what it's called. And I'm like, let's just call this something like almost overnight. I went into one of the groups and asked them, and they're like, oh, well, it's not an overnight, so you can't call it that. It's not the same. And you know how you get backlash when you want to try something new. Yeah. I was like, no, I'm kind of stuck on this. I'll call it extended evening. Oh, that's what it was. Extended evening visits officially on my website. Mm-hmm. But on Precise Pet Care, I tell my clients they're called almost overnights, and they're 2 hours, and you get 3 different packages you can choose from. So you got the 2-hour evening, and arrival can be anytime between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. And I'll stay for the 2 full hours. Sometimes I stay 3 just because I'm really relaxed and I'm watching TV with the dogs when they're sleeping on me. It just, it all depends. Depends on my energy level too. And then I come back in the morning anytime between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. I really try not to push it to 9:30, obviously, but because I stay later, I can make sure to take them out for that last potty break. So they're pretty good about holding if I come at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they can choose a 30, 45 or 60-minute morning visit and a midday visit. And my packages only include the 2-hour evening and whichever time to visit in the morning they want. The middle of the day visit is separate. And the reason why I did that is because some clients have dog doors, and so they don't need or want that middle of the day visit. And what's great about the 2-hour evening visits, if I come a little bit earlier, I can feed them their dinner. Whereas with overnights, a lot of the times, many, I'll say seasoned professional pet sitters start between 8 and 10 p.m., which, we don't want to feed those dogs so late at night. We try not to. A lot of clients choose doing 2 drop-in visits, one in late morning, or at least my clients did when I was doing overnights. They would want a late morning, like 11, for 30 minutes, and then come back in between 4 and 6 to do a dinner visit. So that way they stay on track. But with almost overnights, you can really do basically the same thing without having to go a second time in the middle of the day just to feed them dinner. But that's not always the case. So I have been known to do 2 back-to-back almost overnights, which I don't always recommend. It could be a little exhausting. But so that would make me have to push that middle of the day visit closer to like 4-ish. And then I'll just give them the dinner then, which it works out. It really is dependent on how old the dog is, and if there's any medications involved, obviously that's going to change things. But yeah, my clients love this. I haven't had pushback. And, when I have had new inquiries of clients wanting overnights, I just let them know I'm not available to do so at this time. I don't have staff to do it at this time. Would you like to try this alternative and see how it goes? And I've had clients do it. Like no joke here. I just had a client text me asking me for Labor Day weekend. I just saw the blurb come up.
Oh no.
And I just did 10 days 2 weeks ago of almost overnights. And she's a new client. I've had her since last year. And consistently, she's been doing almost overnights every time. So, and it works out well. So I love doing it. Yeah, It's great. This is why I push it so hard with everybody who's complaining about sleeping at clients' homes.
Well, you started off there, Jill. I mean, I think, and I hope listeners really heard about the cost that the overnights cost you, right? You really counted and you felt that cost of when Lily was going through that. And we talk about, know your numbers, know the cost to conduct a service. And many times it's how many miles is it away? What's the reimbursement rate for mileage? How much is your time worth? What are you expending? What was the training to go get in? How much is insurance being covered with? That's one aspect of this. The whole other aspect of cost to you is opportunity cost and peace of mind cost. What is doing something costing you the ability to do other things that you may want to, like going to your birthday, or the peace of mind of knowing that there are problems out there that you can't solve because you're locked away doing this one thing? Like those, there's no price that you can put on those. And then obviously there's the sleeping aspect of, I too very much value my sleep, and I get it. It's so poor these days anyway. I don't want to risk it. Let somebody else help. But when we say know the cost, like what is this costing you? You have to consider those, and it's okay to go, you know what? It is too costly to my peace of mind to do this thing, regardless of whether it's overnights or whatever it is the client is asking of you. Your peace of mind and your well-being come before the financial aspects of conducting the actual service. And to really make sure that we understand that with anything that we're doing in our business, if it costs us too much peace of mind, if it costs us in our health and our well-being, whether that's spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, whatever that is, if it's costing us too much where we're not the person we want to be, no service is worth it. And it's okay to say no.
Amen. That pressure from it's not necessarily clients, because clients will accept most of the time what services you will and will not do. It's actually pet sitters. I mean, point blank, I just said this a couple minutes ago. I push almost overnights in the groups. And I do that when I see people complaining that their time is so limited and they're not able to sleep well, or the pets are unruly, or there's, clients are not forthcoming about how much work is really involved with the pets that they have, like, doggy dementia. They're up all night and they pace and they howl. I've done this. They pace it and they howl and they have accidents everywhere that you step in because you don't know, or the medication that should have been given that clients don't tell you about, which could prevent the anxiety that these dogs unfortunately are suffering from. I went through this, and my poor part-time sitter, oh my goodness, he went through this and I wasn't even aware. So when I talk about offering this type of service in lieu of overnights, I wish these sitters and newer ones wouldn't feel so offended by offering the alternative to better your own life. That's what it comes down to it. If your life is not in a good place, if you're constantly waking up tired and achy and you feel frustrated because you can't be with your own animals who are aging, or your significant other because you're not home at night, but because you've committed to a client because you want to appease to them, then you need to reevaluate. And it shouldn't have taken my dog going down with a paralyzing disease to offer something else. It shouldn't have, but that's what it came down to. That was a catalyst, because if it didn't happen, I would still be doing overnights to this day.
Yeah, well, because it's not a problem until it is a problem, and many times then we're too late. We get this feeling of, well, I've already invested so much. This is the only thing that my clients like. There's no way they'll go. So I'll just have to trudge through that sunk cost fallacy of, well, I'm already this far into it. I might as well keep going. And especially whenever we think, well, we are at the beck and call of our clients and that we must do whatever they ask of us. And a lot of that time, that's because sometimes that's our personality. Sometimes it's because we're desperate for the business. It could be any number of reasons. But to not be afraid to just have a little bit of pushback and say, oh, hey, I know you're asking for overnights. Let me tell you of how I can help. And presenting something as a different option and then leaving it up to them to decide. But then we have to be okay with the decision that they make and knowing, hey, my peace of mind, my sleep's not worth this client at the end of the day. It's just not worth it, and being okay with that. Jill, when you talk to people about almost overnights, do the clients, do they kind of get it pretty quickly and see the value, or do you kind of have to walk them through why it's okay for somebody not to be there the full time overnight?
So I have a screening process on my website. It's a form for the clients to fill out. And if they make any notation that their dog has a medical condition which causes them to go get up in the middle of the night to let them out, then I'm not going to be the sitter for them. So I wouldn't even offer alternative overnights, almost overnights to them, because it wouldn't suit their pet. If it's anxiety, that's another one. It sounds to me that you probably do need someone to be there all night. Yeah, and I'll tell them. I say, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be the right sitter for you, because it sounds to me that what your pet needs is something that is just not something that I can offer. It's not going to be conducive to their lifestyle, and I don't want you to feel frustrated that, I'm coming in every morning and there's a lot of accidents that would have happened if the pet sitter was there all night. So, I now refer them out. I network with a lot of pet sitters all over DFW, Dallas, and we'll pass clients onto each other if we feel that we can't service them because they're out of our area, number one, or if it's a service that we don't offer. And it's okay. I've come to the realization that I'm not going to be the right fit for everybody, and clients may not be the right fit for me only because of the services I offer or don't offer. And I'm okay with it. I wasn't before. I used to get very bothered when a client would tell me, well, your rates are a little bit, out of our budget, or I need you to stay longer, or whatever it is. And it's like, but I want to people please. And I'm at the age now, it's like, I need to try to please myself first to take care of my needs and my pets before I can. If people tell you this time and again, if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of others? Right. And unfortunately, it's taken me 7-8 years to figure that out into the business. And that's okay. It's totally okay. I just want to present it to other pet sitters that may be listening, that you don't have to be tied down just because this is what the client wants. It's really going to be dependent on what the pets really need. Look at it that way. What do the pets need first before the client just assumes that this is what they need? Because we all do this. We all walk into a client's home. And I do this. I scan the entire home going, how do I need to puppy proof this house? How do I need to block things off so the dog doesn't go into the cat litter box? Because my dogs do this. This is why my litter boxes are upstairs,
Yes.
So you assess things first going, okay, you know what? It looks to be that most likely your dog is probably going to need something that I can't offer, and that's okay. Let me refer you out. I'm happy to help you. I don't want to leave them hanging, and they're so appreciative that I don't want to be left behind, if I'm calling in for services and they're like, well, we can't help you. I'm like, well, can you refer out? No. Okay. Well, that's not how I want to be. I've always worked prior to, being a pet sitter, I've worked in the customer service industry in some format. I was always told, help them out. Even if you personally can't, help them, guide them into the direction that will help them, because they'll remember that. So, and I get a lot of responses from those that I do have to decline. Thank you so much for providing this link to so-and-so. Oh my God, you've been a lifesaver. It makes me feel good knowing that even if I can't service them, at least I've helped them in some fashion.
You had that phrase there of don't start with what the client wants, start with what the pet needs. Now, I think
Mhm.
that's incredibly powerful because while we are in a service industry, and I've said it time and time again, at no point over the last 11 years has a dog ever reached into their pocket to pay me after a visit. It's always a client, right? So clients' needs are
Yes.
important. But when we are looking at how our services can best fit them and solve their problem, we start from the pets, and that's where our recommendations come from. And that can give us a lot of peace of mind in turning down potential asks. When we go, no, I can't serve that pet need, or you're asking this, here's what I'm seeing and how I can help meet this specific need that you're mentioning, and redirecting it back to that with the hope and trust that every pet parent that's contacting us wants the best for their pet. They just may be misinformed, not understand, or have different expectations that they're bringing into it, and are kind of needing us to guide them along that decision tree to get them to the point of whether they're going to use you or not. And that's okay. But walking along that path is a little bit easier for a lot of us to go, okay, pet first, let me focus on them, and then let me talk to the owner about those needs and start meshing these wants with the pet's needs and having that conversation with them.
Absolutely. I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. I totally agree.
Before we continue, I want to tell you about our friends at the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. NAPS is the only national nonprofit professional pet sitting association dedicated to raising and abiding by industry standards. NAPS provides pet sitters with the tools and resources to own and operate successful pet sitting businesses, and they have their in-person pet sitter conference coming up. It's called the Bloom and Grow Your Business, and it is March 1st through 3rd, 2024 in the beautiful city of Savannah, Georgia. Their goal is to bring together industry leaders with session topics that are idea-focused and on a wide range of subjects to foster learning, inspiration, and provoke conversation that matters. Registration is still open until February 19th of 2024, and you can get that for $225 for that entire conference. Visit the NAPS website at petsitters.org for information regarding NAPS membership, certification, and complete conference details. Now, I know one thing that comes to my mind, Jill, about dealing with the almost overnights is I am curious about how scheduling works, because many of us book our days in 30-minute chunks or maybe 45-minute chunks. We may have an hour here or there where we're at a client. But when you are booking out 2 hours, sometimes 3, right? If it's a really good TV show and the dog's really sleeping.
Yes.
How do you schedule that around maybe other pet sitting visits that you have in the evenings?
I really try not to overbook myself. And I made that mistake last Labor Day weekend. That's why I was laughing when my client just texted me that she wanted Labor Day weekend again. Because what happened was that they're not always, clients, they're not always that proactive in planning ahead. Some of them do, and that's totally fine.
What?
And
that's crazy. I've never heard of this before.
Right. But I'm also saying that these clients who I adore, I love their dogs. And what's great is that they allow me to bring my puppies over, which helps me tremendously. And I'll get into that with the hours that you were talking about. Is that some clients who do plan ahead, I'm like, oh, great. I got a 2-hour slot at night for five nights. That's great. And then bam, you get in 2 weeks before Labor Day, here comes another one going, oh, okay, I'm going to have very late nights. So I do. I work those 2 in, but I really try not to take on any more clients with dogs that do the standard 30-minute drop-ins. I may do one more. So, because I know the routine well enough. I will not take on new clients. If I see that I've got a really heavy evening schedule, which means I have a very heavy morning schedule, I won't take on more than I can handle, because not only do I have to wake up much, much earlier, like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, I have to take care of my own animals. And it takes me, I don't think I mentioned this, but I've got 6 dogs and 2 cats.
Okay.
And,
yes.
Right. Well, imagine that the biggest dog is 15 pounds. So the smallest one is 4 pounds. So they don't take up a lot of room, but it's a lot of work, with the feeding arrangements and the food prepping and, all that, and then walking them and taking them out in the yard. And, it takes time. Right. So I have to, where it didn't years ago. That's the thing. When I started my almost overnights, I only had 1 dog at the time. So, so now it's a little bit, right. So it's a little bit more work. It's like, oh my God, I have another kid. I need to wake up earlier, right? So, scheduling can be a little tricky. I sometimes forget to look at my schedule before I say yes.
Yep.
um, but then when I look at going, okay, that's doable. I can take care of it. It's not a big deal. But I'll immediately put a block on my schedule so that when clients try to submit requests in, themselves, a lot of them will just schedule themselves or try to, which is okay. That's what I want. I may have to decline them if they're dogs. If they're cats who normally want 2 times a day, I'll say I only have time for 1. And I really would love to do 2, but I can only do 1. And they're so okay with that because they know at least their pets are still getting cared for. They don't want to have to go to another pet sitter and start all over again, building that trust. And that's the biggest thing is the trust factor. So they know I'll make it work. I will make it work. I just won't sleep. But it's only a short time. It's not like doing those overnights on top of 14 drop-in visits a day. I used to do that. That was and still going home in the middle of the day to take care of my pets. So yeah, not again.
Well, I think it's important to note there of going, okay, this does take knowing your limits, and it does take saying no to both existing and potential clients, or trying to find a new way to adapt them into your schedule and being okay with that. Because I know if you're like me, when Megan and I see the request from a client that like we've been servicing for the last 5 years or whatever, and it's last minute and we don't have room for them, we feel terrible, right? You just feel awful that you can't do anything, or even if you knew if you tried to offer something, it's not going to work. But at the end of the day, it's not our fault, right? But it is our problem, but it's not our fault. But we still feel bad when we can't take those people on.
Yeah. I mean, there's always so many hours in the day, obviously. If we could literally just take out driving, we would be able to fit probably 5 more visits in, right?
Oh,
right?
I know.
We just teleport. I mean, seriously, we would never have to worry about, oh my God, I got to get there in 15 minutes and there's an accident. Oh my God, I have to go around. It's going to take me another 20 minutes. You know it's going to happen, right?
Yep.
And clients don't think of that. That's the other thing is that when they start saying, well, why didn't you come here at 3:05? It's like, well, it's rush hour right now and there's an accident. So, but they generally know. It's like, I give them those large blocks of time. I don't allow them to do those 1 hour windows. I know some sitters that do that. Like, why would you do that to yourself? But scheduling probably, the 2-hour evening visits with 3 30-minute drop-in evening visits, and then going back in the morning to do multiple 30-minute visits. It's doable. It's totally doable. You just have to know, first of all, how long it's going to take you from one client to another, what's involved with each household. This is why I do extensive screening. Very important. And then knowing how many hours that you can allot yourself to take care of your own personal needs. It's a juggling act. That's what it is. I don't have kids, but I can only assume that's got to be what parents go through, and I don't envy it.
Because that's the other aspect of this too. Of when you're looking at the schedule, going, okay, maybe technically I could fit in more, but then I don't have time for me, and I don't have time to go see I don't have to take care of my pets, or I don't have time to go pick up my kids from school, or there's just simple things sometimes, Joe, where it's like, when am I fitting time in for an oil change, or for a haircut, or for like
you want to hear something funny?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. I got to tell you this before I forget. So I thought the 13th was yesterday. So I'm scrambling, going, I got to get my earbuds in because I'm thinking that our conversation was supposed to be yesterday.
Oh, no.
No, hold on a second. And on top of that, I was supposed to go do an oil change and brake fluid thing. So I was planning on taking my laptop to the dealership so we can have the conversation there. And you can cut this out of our interview if you wanted to.
Okay.
But I had food poisoning yesterday. So I'm like, oh my God, if I don't get together by 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm not going to be able to do this interview. And then I look at the date going, oh my God.
Oh no.
The wrong date altogether. So I spent 4 hours. I did go to the dealership. I spent 4 hours at the dealership. And I
Oh,
could have done the interview then. I'm like, oh, it'd be nice and quiet. Wouldn't have any animals
oh.
jumping all over me.
Well, next time we'll schedule it around your oil change. That's what we'll do. Make sure we get that on your schedule.
Okay, in 4 month time. Okay.
Yeah. but yeah, it's going, man. Can you believe it took 4 hours or however long you were at the dealership to get an oil change, and many people are now thinking of trying to find 4 hours in their day for literally anything else, and going.
And you know how I look at this? That's
How?
4 drop-in visits.
Yeah. Yes.
That's how I look at time, and it's weird. It's really weird. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. It really. I mean, that gets exactly to the point of what I was saying. Of going there. This is again about those costs that we keep coming back to. Of I could have a much fuller schedule, but I have no time for the oil change or to go grocery shopping. That's a luxury for a lot of us. Of like, I've got 35 minutes. Quick, start the timer, and I'm going to send my report when I'm done with my visit at the grocery store. But it's going like those are important too. Right. And they have to get done, because if we don't do them, if you don't get your oil changed, your car will not work to run the business that you want to be running. Like that's just a fact,
gosh, yes.
right. And so we have to take care of these things. And yes, they're a nuisance, and yes, they eat up time, but that's part of it. That's a necessity that we have to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And speaking of time, so majority of my visits right now are midday visits. I do have the vacation visits, but I have that big block of midday visits. And I think to myself, if I go home to let my own dogs out, which are really good, they don't need me to come home like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because obviously I'm dog walking. When am I going to get lunch, right? Because my dogs are all over me. They want my attention. So now what I'm having to do is I have to go out to eat. That's the only time I can allot myself, because it'll take me 30 minutes just to deal with my own animals. If that, it's usually an hour. And then to go try to have lunch at home, that's not going to work. So I have to schedule myself 30 minutes just to eat by myself before I take care of my animals, and then go right back out for the afternoon and evening visits. Time is precious. And I hope that other sitters that listen to this really think about how do you want to dedicate your time going forward? If you want to dedicate it to 10, 12 hours sleeping at a client's home, have at it. Bless you. But I think over time it does get a little tiresome. Just not being at home with your own loved ones, whether it's your own pets or your family. And here's the other thing: a lot of us have to, say no to our family events. It's sad, especially around the holidays, right? A lot of us have had to say, no, we got to work. We're committed to these jobs, and we don't want to say no to our clients because, one, it's an extremely busy time. So that's good for our business. And financially, it's really good, right? But at what cost? How many years are we going to go through this? I mean, thankfully, there have been times I have been able to rush over to do a Thanksgiving dinner because I have that block of time, like 4 hours, which is fantastic. But we can't schedule that every single year unless we say no to clients. And that's okay if you want to do that, or if you want to say yes to everybody. That's whatever makes it work for you. But the end result is that what's most important to you as far as time goes, because you're never going to get it back. Never.
Jill, I really want to thank you for coming on the show today to talk to us about counting those costs and understanding where our priorities lie and how it manifests itself on our schedule and what we do say yes to. I know that this is something that you've been working on, that you have kind of struggled your way through. And so if people want to reach out, pick your brain on this, or how to structure almost overnights to get some time back in their day, how can people get in touch with you and follow along with your work?
They can go to my website. I have my phone number. They are free to text me. I would prefer texting. Okay. Or they can send me an email. They can do so through the contact form, just in the section where it says leave notes. They can tell me who they are, or through Facebook. I'm in a lot of groups and I'm very vocal in them. So they're more than welcome to reach out. I've had many people do so. privately, and I appreciate it. And I'm very grateful for the communities that I'm a part of. I mean, without any of them and my best friend, I have to give a shout out to Valley Pet Sitting in LA. Cher Winitsky runs it. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I'm going to give my love to her for that. I hope that people do reach out. I'd love to talk to them about it. It really will make everything so much better.
Right. Well, Jill, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I really can't thank you enough for taking your valuable time and talking to us about it today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate it. It was lovely speaking with you today.
What does it cost you to do that service? How much does it cost you to stay overnight in someone's home? This conversation is really brought to us by Lily, who unfortunately lost a long battle with cancer in September of 2023. She taught Jill a lot of lessons about priorities in life. And she's taught me, and hopefully you, about finding those priorities and actually making them a priority by dedicating our time and attention to them. That ultimately is a cost that we all have to take into account when running our business. Sometimes we can't avoid it. We have to spend time away to put food on the table, to pay the bills, to keep the lights on. That is a fact. Now, how do we balance that out and against with a life that we want to and need to leave outside of our business? That is a cost. We want to thank today's sponsors, Time to Pet, and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters for making today's show possible. And thank you so much for listening. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.